YouTube. So today we are going to be talking about my advice for people considering adoption or hopeful adoptive parents, people who've already started the adoption journey. So I have kind of been doing a lot of research on adoption. I've joined a lot of different adoption forums, adoption Facebook groups. I've read lots and lots of books on adoption, and I've come up with a pretty decent list of advice that I kind of wish I had known at the beginning of our journey. So, this first piece of advice is something that's still difficult for me and for a lot of HAPs and APs that I have found in adoption forums as well as talked to personally. And that is to begin your adoption journey and look at everything as you go from the perspective of the birth mom or the expectant mom. So that is when you look at the website of an adoption agency that you're considering, or an adoption consultant, or an adoption lawyer. Look at all of the wording that they use as if you were in that position. See if any of it appears to be coercive or degrading toward birth moms. And really start thinking about that ethically. How does that make you feel when you put yourself in their shoes? Same thing when you're considering open adoptions or semi-open or semi-closed. Think about it from the birth mom's perspective. Think about everything you do on your adoption journey from that birth mom's perspective. One of the examples I'll give is fundraising for adoption. It's a hairy issue. A lot of adoptees and birth moms and expectant moms are very much against HAPs fundraising for their adoption for a couple of reasons, but the main one is that as HAPs, when we post online and we say, oh, we're adopting, the whole world goes, oh, that's so sweet, here's some money to help. We can easily fundraise to help cover our costs for adoption. Maybe not all of them, but to help us. Whereas many birth moms would be able to keep their children if it weren't for their financial situation, and they don't have that perception. If they post online and say, I'm pregnant, I really need help, I'm doing these fundraisers to help me, parent my baby and keep our family together, people will say, oh, well, shouldn't you just work harder? If you can't raise a baby, then maybe you shouldn't be raising a baby. Maybe you should put it up for adoption. It's a very different experience on the birth mom side. And so think about that with everything you do, with all of the information that you share with your friends and family about your adoption, your child's adoption story. Think about it from the other side, from the birth mom side and from the adoptee side. How will they feel when they see social media posts that you made when they were an infant or while you were trying to adopt? What do you think they're going to think about that? So that should help keep your adoption journey as ethical as possible. You want to be working with very ethical agencies who are going to support expectant moms no matter what they choose. If they choose to go through with their adoption plan or they choose to parent, you should be supporting the expectant mom, whatever choice she makes, because you are in this to help find what's best for the child, and that may not be being placed in your family. The second piece of advice that I'm going to give you probably should have been first, but oh well. That is, before you do anything with adoption, before you talk to an agency, before you really start researching it, before you've 100% made this decision that you are going to adopt, deal with infertility. If you have had experience with infertility as a couple, you need to deal with those emotions first. Adoption is not a last resort. Regardless of how many friends and family have told you, well, you can always adopt when you couldn't have your own biological child due to infertility. It is not a last resort. It is a choice all on its own, and it is vastly different from carrying a child yourself, and it is vastly different from surrogacy. Those are three different options to create a family. Even if you are doing infant adoption, it is not the same as surrogacy at all. There are so many things that complicate it so much more and make it a very different journey for your family. So you need to really understand that this means that your experience with adoption is going to be so different than possibly what you've been imagining your whole life. You may have been thinking that you were going to be pregnant and carry a child, and that in that process you would experience all of the things that a pregnant woman typically experiences. For example, you would have a baby shower that all of your friends and family would support, and you'd know typically when that baby shower would happen before the baby came. With adoption, you may have a shower. It may be before you're placed, but typically a lot of adoptive parents choose to have it after. So it's a very different experience. You're going to have to buy a lot more, typically, on the front end before you bring baby home than you would if you were pregnant. You're not going to have maternity photo shoots because those are typically viewed as very coercive. You'll see a lot of pictures. Typically, it's a surrogate situation where the expectant parents are posing with their surrogate. There are a few instances that you'll see pictures of that, like that, in cases of adoption, but that puts a lot of pressure on that expectant mom to place, and it is very coercive, and it's not ethical in the least. You are not going to have, friends and family at the hospital for the birth. You're not going to have the same type of support system because everyone pretty much knows how pregnancy and childbirth works. They know what to expect. They know what goes into it. Whereas adoption, no one really knows, or the majority of people don't know. They don't understand what happens. So while they may be supportive, it may be a very abstract support. They may not want to ask questions that make them feel dumb or look dumb. They may not want to get too involved because they don't know anything about what you're doing. So just realize that the experience is going to be so different than what you have expected if you expected to carry a child before you get into it, and deal with those emotions. Go to therapy, talk with your spouse extensively. Make sure you understand that it's different, very different. You're also giving up a lot of control. If you were pregnant, you'd know what kind of prenatal care that you would want. You'd know what kind of supplements to take, and you would be able to obviously bond with your child in utero. You'd be obviously at all the doctor's appointments, and again, obviously, you'd be in the room during birth, whereas none of that is in your control or going to happen with adoption. For ethical reasons, for practical reasons, and all of that. So, totally different ballgame with adoption. Number 3, realize that you are going into adoption with no certainty. There's no guarantee, no matter when you are matched, no matter what relationship you develop with an expectant mom or with a child, that child is going to be your child forever. Things change, circumstances change. Expectant moms, and once they become birth moms, sometimes change their mind. Other family may step in. There are a variety of things that can happen up to the point of finalization, and a lot of things can get in your way. That may mean that child will not be placed in your home or will not be permanently in your home, and that uncertainty is often difficult to live with, just like the wait is difficult to live with because you have no control over any of those things. You really have to kind of let go of a lot in the adoption process. And that proves very difficult for a lot of couples. I am definitely one of those people that has struggled with that a lot. I like to be in control. I like to plan. I like to know what's happening next. And it's been a difficult journey for me because of that, and a lot of people are in the same boat. So know that going in. I knew that going in. I prepared myself for this. But a lot of people don't quite know how to navigate that issue when they start realizing how little control they have over anything. And along with that, realize that it is not your baby until you are granted guardianship and until finalization. Um, just like the birth mom is not your birth mom. She's not even a birth mom if she hasn't given birth. If she's pregnant, she's an expectant mom. Those terms are very important, and that respect that it is her child until she relinquishes rights is so important, because that also goes into coercion. You don't want to start laying claim to a child that she's thinking about entrusting you with, but is not yours. And that's why a lot of HAPs don't feel right about being at the hospital. That time after birth, when that birth mom is with her child, it could be the last time that she is with that child. That is her time with her child when she needs to be making very important decisions. And it's a very difficult time. So giving her space and letting her know up to that point that you fully support whatever decision she feels is best for the child. If she decides to place with you, that support will make her feel confident in that choice, that she knew that she was free to make the choice and that she chose to place her child with you because she knew it was best for the child and not for any other reason, not because she felt pressured to do so by the agency or by you. That love and support will show her that you're the right people if she chooses to place with you, and that will open the door for future communication and a future relationship between you and birth mom and possibly birth dad if he's in the picture. My last piece of advice is to kind of guard your emotions. A lot of people choose to, for the purposes of education for their friends and family, to share anything and everything about the adoption experience, hopefully up to the point of oversharing their child's story, because that's the child's story and the birth mom's story to share if and when they choose to, but that's a whole different video. But they share everything. They share when their books are shown to expectant moms. They share when they meet the expectant mom that they're matched with for the first time. They share this whole experience, whereas others are a little more reserved. They might tell people they're adopting, or they might not at all. And then they say, hey, we're bringing home a baby, and you don't get much in between. And if you're choosing, whichever one you're choosing, you might want to kind of educate your friends and family a little bit on why you're choosing to do that. If you choose not to share much, you're kind of limiting your support system, which could be difficult, but it might be a great plan if you have failed matches, because it's very difficult to have a failed match and have everyone in town know about it, know that you were matched, and constantly keep asking you, when's baby coming home, what's going on, and having to share over and over and over again that baby isn't coming home. And it makes it very difficult. So whichever way you feel best, if you feel you need the support system from your friends and family, think about who you would want to share what details with. Or if you don't want to share details with anyone. Entirely up to you, but do what is going to be best for you emotionally. And that is really all of the advice that I have for people considering adoption and for people starting their adoption journey. And I will see you guys later.